Sentinels of the Multiverse is a cooperative card game about superhero comics, and I remember playing the first edition and enjoying it very much. I'm pretty sure you can still find my very enthusiastic review from maybe 10 years ago, review of the game, and now we have the definitive edition, which I read is not just a reprint with new art and a couple of other things, but it has had an extensive redesign in terms of game effects to address some of the fiddliness, some of the bookkeeping that was typical of the original game. And again, I remember liking it, I remember loving it, but I also do remember that you had to keep track of a lot of things. Maybe part of that is unavoidable, because you're going to have a lot of different superheroes, a lot of different villains, and a lot of different effects based on a location. But, well, it's nice to see that this now has been taken care of and limited to an extent. One thing that is different in this edition, if I remember correctly, is the box. I don't remember the original box being so big, but that may just be me. And definitely I don't remember it having dividers such as these. If they had them, I didn't notice them, because I actually remember distinctly that a friend of mine very nicely made origami paper boxes for the various characters, locations, villains. And so that's gonna be the idea. If you're not familiar with the game, you're gonna choose a villain that your team is gonna fight. I already set up the game on the table with Akash Buta. It could be Baron Blade, recommended for beginners, Citizen Dawn, Great Warlord Voss, and so on and so forth. The matriarch, oh my gosh, remember her armies of crows giving us some pain back in the day, but the good kind of pain, the good kind of challenge. Each encounter, so each game is going to have a villain, is going to have a location, each with a deck of cards, just like the villain set deck of cards. And then you're going to have 3 to 5 heroes. The number of players doesn't have to match that. Matter of fact, I just set up the game for 3 heroes, and I'm going to play it solo once I'm done with this video. And these heroes are inspired by archetype of superhero comics. So the legacy is your ultimate good guy who likes to punch people in the face real hard, super strength, and tough to eliminate. The Wraith, one of my favorite characters, the Wraith, is the superhero who uses stealth and gadgets, and so we know probably what that refers to. And the art, especially for the Wraith, the art is like more old school. Most of the art is like Silver Age, 1980s, early 90s, but some of this art for the Wraith, for example, looks more like 50s or 40s, which is perfectly fine, because if the character was inspired by Batman, well, Batman was one of the oldest superheroes. So, and you have Tempest, who can control the weather, things like that. Lots of different archetype. And again, you can mix and match any hero that you want, as long as you have always 3 to 5. So the game is cooperative, all heroes will play together against the villain, and you can play it solo, but there's no true solo. You're gonna have to play it the way I like it. Usually I play a lot of games solo two-handed. Here I have to play solo three-handed, and that's the only thing. So you're gonna have a character card indicating who you are, indicating a special power of your character, a number of health points that you keep track of on a dial. When the hero goes to 0, the hero is incapacitated, and when everybody's incapacitated, you lose the game. And then you're going to have a hand of cards that you are going to play during your turn. Usually, you start pretty slow, you can play a card per turn, you can use a power per turn, but as cards are played, they form engines that will give you different actions, different things to do. And each hero plays in vastly different ways, which is again one of the charms of the game, all of these unique powers and abilities and challenges, weaknesses, strengths, things like that. Yeah, we got the cold guy, the absolute zero. You are an absolute zero. I know it's not very flattering, but it has the temperature you're trying to achieve. Maybe it's good. Maybe it is good. So, you're gonna have your 3 to 5 heroes set with their character card and set with their life points. You're gonna have an environment that you're gonna choose, and so, for example, here I chose Insula Primalis because it has dinosaurs. Yay, dinosaurs. And the villain, and we have the villain, and the villain has it's double-sided, also with some advanced effects. The villain has setup instructions. For example, here during setup I discover, which means I look for in the deck, a number of primeval limb cards equal to number of heroes in play -1, so that would be 2. There you go, see, you can trust me. And then, again, unique effects for each villain. And that's the number of life points that we need to reduce to 0. You're just gonna have to punch them as hard as you can and as often as you can. Once you set up the game the way you see it here, which pretty much means choose a couple of decks, put them on the table, and shuffle them. Its setup is very quick. Then the game is one of the most self-explanatory games that I've ever seen. Basically, it amounts to play some cards and do what they say, and when the villains activate, play some cards for them and do what they say. Which is, again, great because it means that a lot of those unique rules that could be super fiddly, they're already been taken care of. You just do what it says. So here we start the turn sequence with a villain turn, and you check if there are any effects in the villain cards that reference the start phase, then you resolve those. Then you have the play phase when the villain plays a card, and we see what that does. And then there's the villain end phase, where you check to see if there are any cards of the villain that reference the end phase, and then you do what it says. That's not gonna be good for my end phase. Then each hero will go in play order. Same thing, if they have start effects that already been played in front of them from cards from previous turns, then you activate those. You play a card, you activate a power, which can be the one printed on your card or on your main card, or printed on other cards that you have played before and that they're ongoing in front of you. There are a couple of limitations. For example, ongoing cards stay in front of you, but limited, it means you can only have one of that type in front of you, cannot have multiple copies. Start your phase, play a card, activate a power, draw cards, and possibly trigger end phase effects in front of you. Every hero does that, and we check the environment, and it's the usual thing. As you can see, super simple. You also have here a very nice player aid. This is the back of the rule book. Great player aid. Pretty much you put in front of new players, say now you can start playing. Definitely a game that you can learn by playing. It's probably the best way to learn it that way. And with useful terms here, such as discover, reaction, salvage, and things like that. You continue to play until either your heroes are kaput or until the villain is defeated. And this is basically how you play Sentinels of the Multiverse. And here, so this is the base components, and here you're going to have also a couple of other things that come with this set. You're going to have event cards that present specific challenges, and then also if you defeat them, they become collections, meaning they are rewards for you. We have advanced or critical events, making them a lot tougher, so for tougher gameplay. And finally, we have alternate different hero cards. They represent the same hero, but they have slightly different values and possibly game effects, and also they have different art, so that is neat. Sentinels of the Multiverse is great. This is such a great game. I loved it when it came out originally. I'm glad this new edition gave me the opportunity to play it again. Also because I don't own my original copy anymore. I donated it to the Lily Library with most of my collection last year. It's great. It's a great game that flows very well, has a lot of nice, interesting challenges, tons of replay value because of the really unique ways in which the villains, the environment, and the heroes interact with one another. The environment at the beginning, I wasn't super sold. I'm talking about a decade ago. It just seemed to add a little bit of maybe too much fiddliness and complexity, but they're fun because they will affect the action in different ways. If you play with the dinosaur islands, well, those dinosaurs may try to take a bite from your heroes or from the villains, so you're going to allow them a little bit longer. The Magmarians, these like creatures made of living magma, same thing. So the way in which the environments, again, change the challenges is really fun. The flow, the pace of the game is great. Even when you played multiplayer with actual human players, and I played this new edition also with some friends using a friend's copy, and it still flows well, which is kind of surprising because when you start building your engine, I draw a card, I play a card, I draw another, blah blah blah. And yet somehow it never feels overwhelming. In most cases, you do have a chance to plan your turn ahead, so that also helps with keeping the pace going. And the solo is also very playable. Again, I played it yesterday, and trying different combinations of villains and heroes. Not every hero works quite as well solo. Some can be a little bit complicated. But if you have Bunker, who's just building up ordnance and then throwing it at the opponent, Haka, the big guy who just punches, just smashes things real hard. Maybe you have one of those more straightforward ones, and then you can add some more complexity with the ones that do support. It plays well, it's fun, so what's not to love? Now, this new edition, everything looks great. We have some new things. We have the events, the event cards, which are optional things for an extra challenge and for extra rewards, and you can play them in order to create a little bit of a campaign. I don't think that they add so much. I don't feel that they change things, but they don't hurt anything either. So if it's something that you may be interested in, that is there. We have alternate versions of the characters for even further customization and variety. And the promise of the set is that now gameplay is more streamlined, is less fiddly. Now, I wouldn't be able to give you an objective assessment, again, also because I don't have the original copy to go through each component one by one and tell you, oh, this has been redesigned this or that way. And if I did have that copy, I still wouldn't do it because ultimately I want to know how the game plays and feels. And I can tell you this, I'll base my assessment on my experiences. Playing the definitive edition in 2014 felt as fun and as exciting as the original game felt about a decade ago. So I assume the game is better. So I assume the game has been streamlined. Simply put, because that's the direction that games are going these days. Games published now, they tend to be more streamlined, more playable, more user-friendly, have quality of life improvements that older games did not. Which also means we are, I wouldn't say spoiled, but we are now more demanding. The kind of downtime that was okay in 1995 was not okay in 2015 anymore, and is not okay in 2024. Even play elimination used to be okay back in the day, and it's not. So my point is, as I am used now to play games that are more streamlined and they flow better, the fact that this game feels fun and exciting by the standards of 24 tells me that probably it has indeed been improved from what used to be the first edition, which I remember being pretty fiddly. I remember that being okay by then, but back in the day, because again the positives outweighed the other elements, the fiddliness by so much. But I think that if this game was just the same level of fiddliness now, it would annoy me a little bit more. Just an example, when Dominion came out, that was one of my favorite games, and I didn't mind the long turns. That same kind of flow was already annoying me a couple of years later. If Sentinels Definitive Edition plays as well as the original one, for somebody who is now more demanding and discriminating, I do believe that probably they achieved the purpose of making the game more streamlined and more up-to-date with current taste. So I'm definitely happy with the Sentinels in general, and I'm happy that I have the new edition here with me so I can keep playing it in the future.